Misery and bloodshed in the Middle East will never end unless people on both sides can accept some absolute truths. Israel has a right to exist and a right to defend itself after terror attacks. Palestinians need a state too, with every freedom and every right that Israelis enjoy. And none of that will ever be possible with Hamas, a terrorist group which perpetrated and then celebrated an historic massacre of Jewish people. That is why I repeatedly asked Jeremy Corbyn last night if he believes Hamas is a terror group and if he believes they should stay in power. Are Hamas a terror group?
Listen, can I...
Are they a terror group?
Piers, can I speak?
Answer the question.
Can I speak?
Are they a terror group?
Piers.
No, no.
If you let me speak...
Are they a terror group?
If you'll let me speak, I'll say something.
Go on, then.
A ceasefire means both sides...
You said that. Are they a terror group?
Listen, I said that because
are they a terror
that is
group?
part of the process.
Are they a terror group?
Can we go...
Why can't you say it? Completely baffling, or maybe completely telling. Because if you can't answer that very straightforward question, what possible basis is there for listening to your ideas about what should happen next? It's very revealing that Corbyn's longtime friend Len McCluskey, himself an icon of the British left, was able to answer both questions very easily and looked like he wanted to pretty quickly. I actually agree with Corbyn and the Palestinian supporters about many things. Israel's undoubtedly oppressed the Palestinian people for decades. Israeli expansion on the West Bank is plain wrong and illegal. There are grave concerns about the soaring death toll in Gaza as Israel now seeks to eradicate Hamas. But there can't be any moral ambiguity about Hamas itself. They are a terror organisation who just committed one of the worst terror atrocities in history. Genocide is written into their founding charter. There's been a shocked reaction from across the political spectrum. James Cleverly posted, as Home Secretary, I can confirm that Hamas are a terror group. And here's what David Lammy, a Labour MP who actually nominated Corbyn to be leader, said in Parliament today.
They committed the most brutal attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Now they're using innocent Palestinians as human shields. I'd like to register my shock that not every member of this House can say this truth. Hamas are terrorists.
Well, I also asked Jeremy Corbyn about the time he referred to his friends and Hamas.
10 years ago, I was in a private meeting in the House of Commons with a number of people who were representative of different Palestinian groups. It was an attempt to understand their views and to bring people together. For a short time, a person who was related to Hamas left the room. And I said, in a collegiate, a friendly and appropriate way, as you would at any meeting, where's our friend from Hamas gone?
If only that was all he'd said. But it quickly turned out, thanks to social media, which always keeps receipts, it was just a massive whopper.
Tomorrow evening it will be my pleasure and my honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking. I'd also invited friends from Hamas to come and speak as well. And the idea that an organisation that is dedicated towards the good of the Palestinian people and bringing about long-term peace and social justice and political justice in the whole region should be labelled as a terrorist organisation by the British government is really a big, big historical mistake.
Yeah, I think the big historical mistake was that belief, and that may explain, of course, why Jeremy Corbyn couldn't answer my simple questions last night. If you can't call Hamas a terror group, then frankly, I think you're a terrorist sympathiser. It's not difficult. All of this matters because Jeremy Corbyn retains a big following amongst left-wing people in this country, and he takes centre stage at the pro-Palestine marches. In my view, he does them no favours whatsoever. Left-wing politics has long been dogged by claims of anti-Semitism because it so easily strays into a narrative of oppressors and the oppressed, with all the nuances trampled out. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, quite possibly our next Prime Minister, is facing a revolt over his own position on the Israel war. He's refused to back calls for a ceasefire. 50 councillors have quit in protest. A shadow front bencher, Imran Hussein, resigned his post in protest too. Labour relies on Muslim voters, and many of them are furious. That could make the difference between a majority and a hung parliament, or even a loss at the next election. Well, Starmer's worked hard to drag Labour out of the Corbyn crisis, but the Israel-Hamas war has created a new one for him, and it's not yet clear that he has the answers. Well, my first guest tonight is Labour grandee Lord Mandelson. He served as First Secretary of State in 2009 as the leading advisor to Tony Blair, of course, during his tenure as Prime Minister. And he joins me now. Well, Lord Madison, good evening.
Hello, Piers.
It's been a while.
It has, but it's
A
nice
long
to be
while.
back with you.
It is, and I share the joy. I was watching intently the Corbyn sort of fiasco last night. What did you make of that?
It wasn't a fiasco. He was telling the truth.
Which is what?
That he doesn't believe Hamas are terrorists, that he can't find it in himself to condemn utterly the cynical, sadistic, gleeful, cold-blooded murder that Hamas undertook on October the 7th. He sympathises with their aims. And to be perfectly frank, I think it's because he doesn't value the continued existence of the State of Israel. And it's because of that view of his that he's no longer leader of the Labour Party. He no longer has the Labour whip in the House of Commons, and he will not be a Labour candidate
He is an
at the next
MP.
election.
Let me ask you, he remains an MP.
Of course, because he was elected at the last election.
So is there any other mechanism, given his position clearly looks like he's supporting a terror group, is there any other mechanism for him to be removed?
None that I can think of. I mean, there are recall petitions, but that is, I think, in particularly prescribed circumstances. So no, at the next election, he won't be standing as a Labour candidate. If he chooses to stand as an independent, then it will be up to the people of his constituency in Islington to turf him out, and I hope they will.
It sort of shines a light, I guess, on the big debate about the marches, particularly the one that's just happened at Armistice Day and so on, where you have a large body of people genuinely marching peacefully, who genuinely want a ceasefire in Gaza, and I completely respect that opinion. But you have sprinkled among them, in quite large numbers, people whose rhetoric or regalia, whatever it may be, is clearly a step further, and in some cases blatantly supporting Hamas, or chanting things like death to the Jews or jihad or from the river to the sea.
They're even calling for a free Palestine, and what they mean by a free Palestine is free of Israelis.
So what should happen? What should we do about these marches?
I think you have to, because we are strong in this country and we have a very robust democracy, and we live and let live and respect other people when they express their views, allow them to continue unless they cross the line. And when they engage in racial hatred, if they break the law, the police should go in and prosecute them.
If, as they are, Hamas are a proscribed terror group in this country, if you're a politician who refuses to call them a terror group, is that a crime?
I'm not a policeman. I'm not a member of the Crown Prosecution Service. I can't say. But, you know, the government, Parliament has agreed to prescribe Hamas. And let me make this absolutely clear, Piers, if I may. There's a very, very big distinction and separation between the marginal people who share Jeremy Corbyn's view, which is basically that everything is the West's fault. Everything sort of starts with the corruption and collapse of the capitalist system, and everything everyone else does is excusable on that basis. That is a marginal view. It's his anti-Western world view. There's a completely different and separate view, which is shared by many of us in the Labour Party, which is, of course, appalled at the humanitarian catastrophe that's going on in Gaza. As you yourself said in your opening remarks, the scale of civilian death is terrible. The lack of utility supply to the people of Gaza is unacceptable. The continued holding of the hostages is completely unacceptable. The violence on the West Bank is unacceptable. Now, we can all unite around that view. But the idea that somehow we in, the British Parliament can impose a ceasefire on two combatants in this war is, of course, completely ridiculous.
But we could. In fact, we decided to abstain when the UN had a vote on this. But we could have voted. We could have voted as part of the UN to say we support it.
Well, the government chose to abstain.
Yeah.
OK. Well, they no doubt had their reasons.
Is that moral cowardice not to say either way?
Personally, I would have voted against a ceasefire, because we know that the only ceasefire that is possible is one that is unilaterally called by the Israeli side. Hamas are never going to call a ceasefire because it is in their constitution. It's their whole purpose of existing, to destroy the state of Israel.
What does Keir Starmer do about this rising groundswell of opposition from within his own ranks, his own party, who do want a ceasefire and don't like the fact that their leader is being so resolute against it?
Well, he doesn't.
There may even be a vote apparently as early as tomorrow.
No, there may well be a vote. But the Labour Party, the Labour front bench, the leader, Keir Starmer, have tabled a very good amendment to the resolution which is being debated in the House of Commons tomorrow, which sets out why the Labour Party supports a total, comprehensive pause in the hostilities for humanitarian reasons. But that is not the same as a ceasefire, because a ceasefire, by definition, is one that has to be agreed, negotiated and agreed by both sides. Hamas will never agree to that. And so if the Israelis were unilaterally to declare one, they essentially would be handing on a plate to Hamas the very victory that they want. They would come out shooting their guns, replenishing their stocks, continuing to fire their rockets into Israel. Why on earth should the Israelis? How can the Israelis accept that? Of course they can't.
You are a good number cruncher. You know about polling. Interesting and quite worrying polling about Muslim support for the Labour Party has been plummeting and accelerating down as a result of this war. What do you think of that? And what does Keir Starmer do about it?
I understand the sentiment, Piers. I understand there's huge emotion firing people up, and I completely understand why. Now, in due course, this civil war between Israel and Hamas will fight itself to a conclusion. I believe that to be the case. It may not extinguish Hamas, but it will certainly reduce Hamas and remove their ability to kill innocent civilian Israeli people. And that's what Israel has got to do. It has to continue until this is seen through and the job is done. And I think most people in the country will understand and accept that. But I fully understand why there are such powerful emotions when people see the pictures on their television of this humanitarian catastrophe, what is happening to families, to mothers, to children and babies in hospitals which, as we know, are used by Hamas as civilian shields with their command posts in tunnels underneath the very hospitals which the Israelis are trying to get at. It's horrible, but I'm afraid it is a consequence of what Hamas did in the first place on October the 7th.
Is Muslim distrust in the Labour Party a consequence of what you were part of with the Iraq War? You weren't Tony Blair. You were an advisor.
I wasn't in the government at the time.
I know.
Famously.
You were an advisor, but you were part of the team advisor.
No, I voted for it. I voted for it in the House of Commons originally.
And as you know, I was violently opposed to it and campaigned against it. And as it turned out, the war happened. It was pretty much a disaster. I never thought that Tony Blair deliberately lied, but he got it massively wrong. And there was a massive breach of trust then, I felt, with Muslim people and the Labour Party. Do you accept that?
I do accept that a lot of people lost a lot of faith in the Labour government at the time. You could argue that a mistake was made, but that it was an honest mistake in a sense that that's what you have said in different words. But we've built back that faith and that trust in the Labour Party, and I very strongly believe that we'll do so again when the sort of sheer emotionalism an intensity of this time has passed.
You've got a podcast with the Times called How to Win an Election.
Yeah. You
talk to Keir Starmer all the time. He's in a great position. But is he in a great position as Tony Blair was in 96-7? Or is he in a position that looks great but may not be, like Neil Kinnock in 92?
No, it's not 92. I stood for election in 92, having been the Labour campaign director during the 1980s. No, this is not 1992, but nor would I say it was yet 1997. And I think what Keir Starmer and the Labour Party have got to do over the coming year is having people tuned out of the Conservative government. I mean, they're not listening to the Conservatives anymore, but they're not yet committed fully to the Labour Party. And I don't believe that will happen until next year. People won't start focusing on the alternative. They won't start focusing on the election until we're much nearer it. And it's likely to come in the autumn of next year.
One of the problems that the party may have, other than a dwindling Muslim support, is this.
A woman can have a penis.
I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said.
For the vast majority of women, this is all about biology, and of course they don't have a penis. We all know that. 99.9% of women, it's all biological, and it's very straightforward. My position is, as I've set out, as I say, for 99.9% of women, it's a matter of biology. I completely support that.
Who are the 0.1%? Can you fill the blank for me?
I guess what he's
of apparently women who have penises. Do you know who they are? Who he's talking about?
Less than 1% of women who have penises. I assume that he's talking about women who choose to identify as women.
Are they women?
But are not biologically different. No, they're not.
So he's wrong?
Well, I believe that they are essentially in a transition between being having a male identity that they started with and a female identity
your percentage
that they've
I don't want you
chosen
to put words in your mouth, but your percentage would be 100.
My view is really quite straightforward. If you have a penis, you're a man, but you can self-identify as a woman should you choose to do so.
But it doesn't make you a woman?
In my view, no.
So you agree with Rishi Sunak, not Keir Starmer?
I don't know what Rishi Sunak's
He said exactly what you just said.
View is, but if he has said exactly the same words as I have used, then it would certainly appear to be that we're in the same place.
Did you ever think you'd agree with a Conservative Prime Minister over your own Labour leader in an election year, Peter?
It's not the worst crime in the world.
On a positive note to end, congratulations on getting married.
Thank you very much.
To your long-time partner, Ronaldo, at the Old Marylebone Town Hall, literally October the 27th. Guest Tony Blair, Derek Draper, our mutual friend, who's obviously been going through utter hell with his wife Kate.
And Keir Starmer joined us later.
And Keir Starmer joined later. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's really, really nice.
Enjoying married life?
Heaven knows why after 27 years I left it so long.
Who proposed to who?
Shall I tell you how it happened?
Yes.
He said, you've got a big birthday coming up in October and we're going to give a big party. I said, no, you are not going to give any big party for my big birthday. He said, oh, well, hold on, don't be such a killjoy. We'll get married instead and we'll have an even bigger party.
Really?
Yes.
That's a true story.
It's a true story.
It's a nice story. Good to see you again, Peter.
Nice to see you.
Appreciate you coming in. Lord Madison.